What's up, everybody? We are live. This is Whiskey in the Six. I'm Rob, and I'm here with a good buddy, a good friend, a very classy individual, Roy from Aqvavitae. Roy, why don't you say hello, buddy?
Hello, Whiskey folk. How is everyone? Fantastic to be here, Rob. Fantastic to be invited onto your show. My first time, and I'm super excited about it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. This is around dinner time for a lot of people. But for your people, for the people in your time zone, it's 10 o'clock, right?
Yep, it's 10 p.m. here, so just getting a little bit late, but if you're sitting up late and having a dram, I hope you've decided to stop by and have a dram with us, right?
That's it. Well, we have 21 in so far and climbing. I'm going to pull up the chat on my phone, but tonight's going to be a little bit different. Tonight we're going to be doing a recycled review. I got my recycling bin right here, inspired by Roy's recycled reviews. Maybe you can speak to how that idea came to fruition on your end.
I think it's frozen on the camera's frozen. I think are we frozen? I don't think I've appeared yet, have I?
Oh, really?
Oh, I've just appeared now. No, maybe it's just at my side. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I thought it was popping back and forth. Right now, I don't have the box highlighted on anybody, so it should be going back and forth, but I could be wrong.
No, it was just a lag. It's caught up, and I can see now, and I can see the chat coming in as well. Yes, so we're going to try and do this recycled thing a bit later on, right? And I think that if there's anybody that could use some help recycling, Rob, it's you. I have to be honest. If I look over your left shoulder there, have these become ornaments? Be honest.
So this has been named the kill zone, and I'm having a tough time recycling these. And I've already played this out in my head a few times, thinking, what am I actually gonna do once they're in the bin? Am I gonna go through with it and recycle these bottles, or am I actually going to just put them back up onto the... What I think I should do, though, is because I have a whole bunch of new bottles coming up, maybe it's time I start clearing out some of the old.
Well, if you ever decide to start faking whiskeys, you've got a good place to start, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. Don't put that idea in their head. Then they'll think that we do that.
Well, that's one of the things behind the recycling video. The idea that even although some of the bottles that I'm throwing away there are quite nice bottles. I mean, not particularly expensive. They're mostly drinkers' bottles, right? But the idea that they do actually get thrown away and smashed, and that way, if you do take care of those bottles properly, they don't end up in the hands of people that are willing to fill them with cheap stuff and pass them off as something else, which unfortunately is happening a lot.
That's a very good point, actually. I never really thought of that. I didn't think, I mean, I guess I just suppose that everybody would do the right thing, and when they get rid of their old bottles, they'll just recycle them, but that is happening a lot. There's a lot of counterfeit type things out there. Macallan is known to be one of the most counterfeit whiskeys, so... And I have a whole bunch of those up there, so I should definitely do as you suggest.
Exactly. So, either sell them on eBay as empties,
yeah,
or do the right thing and smash them, right?
Gonna start with the Glen Scotia 15. I believe you have a Glen Scotia on your side. Maybe you can share as well.
Yep. I just picked this up recently. Actually, the only Glen Scotia I have in the cabinets just now is this Glen Scotia 16, which is a travel retail. Presented at 46%, natural color, non-chill filtered, 16 years old, reasonable price for a litre bottle as well. I'm really enjoying it. Nice, meaty whiskey. You can almost chew this one. It's pretty good. And to be honest with you, I'm enjoying everything that's coming out of Glen Scotia right now. Fantastic.
Yeah. I think, if I'm not mistaken, you're a pretty big Campbelltown region fan, right? You like your Springbanks and your Hazelburns and that sort of thing?
Well, yeah, I do. And I'll have to be honest, though, that for a while it was really easy to get the regular Springbanks, you know, the 10, the 15, the 18, no problem. And that's still generally true, but it can be tricky. You know, it's not like you can walk into your local specialist anymore and be guaranteed even to have the 10-year-old on the shelf anymore. When it comes to Springbank, I think they're fast becoming our kind of pappy, right? Or it's really difficult to get a hold of it sometimes. And they do a lot of really, really cool special editions, wine finishes and things like that, whether it's Springbank or whether it's Longrow or Hazelburn. And really, you're putting your name on a list for those now. And if you get the phone call, fantastic. And if you don't, you've lost out and you end up on auction or hoping that a friend has managed to get a hold of some. So it's difficult to get it. You guys in North America and Canada actually have a better chance of getting a hold of especially limited edition Springbanks than we do.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. That's really surprising because in certain parts of Canada, it's really easy to get a Springbank, and it's starting to become more and more easy in Ontario, although the 18 is about $270 in Ontario, whereas somewhere like in Alberta, you can get it for still around $160 to $180. Big price discrepancy, but it's still available, which is the good thing, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the trouble, is that if you do end up having to pay over the odds, and I really grudge doing that. It has to be a really special whiskey. But I'll never pay over the odds for a whiskey that can't deliver on taste. I don't ever buy whiskey to collect. I don't buy it to invest. I think I could not be trusted to have an investment collection. I would just want to burst the thing open and taste it. So I tend to buy whiskies. My decision is based on, do I think that whiskey is worth it to taste? So yeah, a lot of the Springbanks very quickly go over that threshold. They're very, very good whiskies, but you're not going to pay double retail within just a few months of them being out, right? Glen Scotia, that doesn't happen on Glen Scotia. Glen Scotia is becoming more and more widely available. Even their non-age statement double cask is a decent dram. Then they go through their age statements. They're all very, very good. I was recently at Glen Scotia Vertical Flight, and everything I tried was pretty fantastic. And that's really encouraging because it wasn't always the case. And obviously, the owners of Springbank, Jane A. Mitchell, now own Glengyle. And they are on part-time production down there still, and they're putting out Kilkerran just now, which is also a wonderful whiskey and firmly made its way into my top 3 12-year-olds. Just fantastic stuff. So I suppose, yeah, I've never actually thought about it that way, but yeah, I'm a bit of a Campbelltown fan. But yeah, there's only 3 distilleries down there. It just so happens that nowadays all of them are bloody good.
Well, I guess quality comes from there, but not quantity. I do have a bottle that I wanted to share tonight because you helped me make this decision. It's the Anak 1975. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to pour myself a dram, and closer to the end of the review, I'll have a sip. Not going to review it tonight. I just wanted to open it up because I thought it would be a good night to celebrate with my good buddy all the way from Scotland, joining us on the channel tonight. And because of you, we're already at 52 people that have joined us.
Superb.
Yeah, so we have pulled quite a few people away from their dinners tonight, which I apologize, but I guess if they're all joining us with a whiskey, then it's not that big a deal.
Eric Waite is saying he wishes he was the garbage man who emptied my recycling bin. Unfortunately, Eric, there is rarely much in the way of dregs left in there, but why don't you stop by my house sometime, Eric, and I'll pour you a couple before they make it that far. George Kaplan is saying the wife's cousin just picked up Longrow Red 13 Malbec. For me in California, I can't wait for them to bring it home. I just picked up the Cabernet Franc Longrow Red. It's an 11-year-old. And I bought that purely on the strength of that 13-year-old Malbec. It was. Have you tried that, Rob? It was. I'm not a wine finish fan, but that Longrow Red was a wonderful dram. Wonderful.
I have yet to try a Longrow, unfortunately. I've only tried the Hazelburn and Springbanks from their range so far. I'm looking forward to a Longrow. I know that Longrow is supposed to be the most peated of the 3, right? Am I correct in saying that?
Well, Hazelburn's triple distilled and unpeated. Springbank is peated, usually single-digit ppm. Doesn't go much into double-digit ppm. Springbank, yeah. So when you talk about Longrow being heavily peated, I think it's still only about 25 or thereabout. I'm not sure. Maybe the commenters could chime in and let us know. But yeah, it's their most heavily peated edition. But it's damn tasty.
Yeah, and I'm tasting my 12-year-old cask strength, and it's, first of all, it's absolutely incredible. I adore it. Second of all, I'm noticing it quite a bit more peaty than I expected, which is a great thing. I think it really matches up nicely with the heavy ABV, but I don't know how much more Longrow could be peated than this Springbank here. So I guess those are the differences you just explained make more sense. Just gonna pour this out for us and say cheers to everybody.
Cheers, Rob. Can I say something to you on that Anak specifically? I noticed that you've just opened it tonight.
Absolutely.
I'll grab mine as well, and I'll do the very same thing as with you. Now, I have a confession to make to everyone out there and my brother, because this little bottle of Anak is my brother's bottle. He turned 40 in 2015. And so I looked everywhere for a 1975 whiskey to gift him for his 40th. Finally, this is the one that I found, and I gifted it to him. He kept it sealed, and he waited until we were together until he opened it and we shared the first dram. A funny story, when he poured me my first dram, I was pretty excited, and I got the camera out to take a photo, and I knocked the whiskey over. So the first dram out of this bottle ended up over a table, unfortunately. But the good thing about a Glencairn glass, when it lands on its side, there's usually still a good bit left in the bowl, right? So we managed to save some. But he brought it up here for us to share some more, and he left it here, and it's been here for a year and a half now, I would say. And the only dram I've had out of this when he's been up. And one night my wife poured me one of these by mistake. So Craig, if you're watching and if you don't want me to pour this tonight, phone me now. Otherwise, I can't think of a better reason than to have one of these with Rob over in Canada, especially when he's having one. But the reason that I wanted to pour it now is what I think you should do with this whiskey. This is definitely not one of those beginner drams, and it certainly needs to sit in that glass for 20 minutes anyway, just to sit and breathe. Take a little sip now while it's tight, and then go back to it in about 20 minutes. You might see what I'm talking about. And I know I'm preaching to the converted here, Rob.
You know what? I could tell that it does need some opening up just based on the nose, but I'm getting way more sherry than I expected off first couple of whiffs. Way more sherry than I expected.
You getting any savory notes from it? Almost like a meat type, maybe even a, you know, there's not much in the way of smoke on this, but maybe a slightly smoked meat type note. So am I coming through blurry on your end? Because Whiskey Throttle Daniel keeps letting me know that I'm a bit blurry, but that could be because my technology is awful. I actually have a little bit better camera than I used to for my lives when I'm with somebody else. I'm using a Logitech webcam. It's supposed to be 1080, but I don't think it's able to pick me up fast enough to be 1080. No, you'll be running at 720 just now, but you're fine. You look nice and clear to me. Yeah. Absolutely, and I can hear you nicely as well. So I'm going to sip this Glen Scotia while I'll leave this Anak. I'm going to do the same. I'll leave my Anak, and I'm going to... So I know you... I must have listened to your pronunciation videos at least 13 times each. And I know you say Anak. The way you say it, I don't... It's impossible for me to replicate, so I'm just going to call it Anak. And hopefully that's good enough. I don't know. What do you think? That's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. Anak. Yeah, even they're very helpful. In the bottle, it actually says, it says pronounced Anak. There's a lot of whiskies that could learn from that, right? Putting some pronunciation help on the label. I've just poured
right on the bottle, right?
Yeah, I've just poured a 24-year-old as well, just to leave that one to sit. I want to compare the two.
I wish I had the 24 to join you, but I have a Glen Scotia. So this 15-year-old was actually donated to the channel from Peter White. He wasn't entirely pleased with it. He opened it, had a few drams out of it, didn't love it. So then he passed it over to me. And this is probably going to be my second or third dram out of it. And I'm actually enjoying it. So his one person's garbage is another person's gold, I guess.
Absolutely. And I think that sometimes, especially in the 15, that's another savory whiskey, that it can be a bit, as you say, gold or garbage for some people. If you've been into whiskey quite a while and you like a dirtier whiskey, if you like an earthy, engaging whiskey, that might be something that you enjoy, but it can be a little bit off-putting. It can be a little bit savory.
So we're at the 52 person mark. I haven't been able to keep up with the chat, Roy. I'm not sure if you have been.
I'm terrible at multitasking, but what I've done is I've just been scrolling through to see any that's highlighted to me. If it's highlighted to you, Rob, unfortunately, I don't get it. But Access Whisky, that's a new name. Access Whisky, that's cool to see them. Thanks for all the talk about Deanston. Really enjoying their whiskey now. Yes, I think you've discovered Deanston as well, Rob, right?
I have. I really fell in love with the 10-year-old cask strength PX finish. And since that review, I've been scouting out a whole bunch. I have the Virgin Oak right here, which is unopened still, but eventually will get opened. Really liking their stuff. I wish I could find some of the older stuff by them in this area, but even in Alberta, I haven't been able to find too much from them.
Well, sorry, I've reached down for a couple of shopping bags. I recently managed to snag, and I really like this packaging. Look, it's just a piece of printed cardboard. Really not much fuss about it at all. And it's in the exact same bottle as the regular bottlings as well. This is a Deanston Distillery, and I'd been after this for a little while. I was a wee bit nervous that it would sell out, but this is to celebrate those guys being open for 50 years. And they've vatted together casks from each of the decades that they've been open. Now, I did have a list of the breakdown of what's in this. I don't have it handy right now. It's not opened yet. I'm going to save this for a little while, but I was glad to get a hold of this before it disappears. And I feel very confident buying Deanston product now. I feel like I've tried so many and just been intrigued by them all that I don't really need a recommendation or to try a sample or a dram of it first. I'm just loving it, and I know that this is probably going to be a pretty damn good whiskey as well.
Yeah. So I've been very pleased with what I've tried from them as well. So I bet that will be pretty awesome. So Hoagie Bear is actually drinking your favorite. Actually, this is I think this was the one, actually. So the Lagavulin 12 2017, that's Hoagie Bear.
Yes.
Is that what he's drinking right now, or was he just stating that was your whiskey of the year?
He's saying not whiskey of the year because he disagreed with me. He felt that while it was a good whiskey, it wasn't his style of Lagavulin. Hoagie Bear likes a more direct, minerally, saline, hard-hitting, ashen Lagavulin. And because of that have you tried the 2017 yet? You haven't, have you?
I have the 2016 right here. But
right, I think that's going to be more Hoagie style of 12-year-old, where the 2017 maybe through maybe more active bourbon casks, perhaps it had a much more kind of viscous sweetness to it, which I really, really loved. There was almost an effervescence to it and a kind of silky texture, and I really loved that. That's what really made it pop and fizz for me. But Hoagie didn't like that so much. He prefers a much more direct ashen proposition.
Let's see. I'm not sure which batch this is. what's the best way to find out which batch you have of the Springbank? Is there a barcode or?
I'm not sure. Perhaps there's a code on it somewhere, but I tend to go on when I bought it because it sells out here so quickly, right? So again, I managed to pick up this as well, just through getting the tip off from this shop that had it in. They had much more of this available. I mean, I would imagine this to last a bit longer, but it does sell out quite quickly. So this is the first release of 2018. That's all I know. I'm not sure about where the coding is on these. No doubt there'll be somebody in the comments.
I'm assuming mine is from 2017 because it was, well, it could be even earlier. Maybe it just got bypassed every time people went to that particular shop in Alberta. But I'm shocked at how good it is. In my opinion, it's absolutely fantastic stuff. The type of peat, it reminds me a lot of an Octomore, where it's more of a barbecue type smoke, like charcoal type smoke, as opposed to your ashy, briny, medicinal type notes, like burnt rubber. Like you don't really get any of that for me anyway, from the Springbank, whereas you would get that more from the Lagavulin 12.
Sometimes I actually need to pour something in contrast with a Springbank to taste the peat. I don't know if you ever get this, but sometimes if you have too many peated whiskies, you start to, it's almost like your brain cancels out the peat and the smoke, and you start to taste beyond it and taste other things that's in there. And then you taste something that's kind of mildly peated, like a Highland Park or perhaps a Bowmore or a Springbank or something like that. And you don't even recognize that it's smoky until you have it directly after something that's completely not smoky, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what do you think? Should we start to tear down this tower that I've built up here? What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't, what's your intention, that you're just going to kind of grab bottles and dangle them above a recycling bin and drop them in or something? Is that the idea?
I was thinking that I pull one down, I give my impression of it, I'm just going to mimic basically what you would do in your recycled reviews, because I think they're absolutely brilliant. It's such a great way to talk about a whole bunch of different whiskeys, and then, you know, the viewer leaves with an idea of what they should go out and buy, which is, I think, absolutely incredible. And you get that done in a short video, very concise, very professionally well done. So yeah, just basically I want to mimic your idea, and I'll speak to it very quickly. I'll turn the mic over to you. You can speak to it if you've tried it before, and we'll go from there. What do you think? Absolutely, go for it. Let's see. All right.
Well, we have some background music. What do you think? Will this work?
I think that's a good idea. So, do you want me to freeze the camera on my side if we do the background music?
Yeah, let's do that. Now, the background music is the only negative feedback that I get on these recycled videos. People don't like the background music, so tell me if this works.
I hear it. Nice.
Go for it.
All right, let's get this. So if you play it, let's just double check. If you're playing it, will it spin back to the viewers? Because I know it doesn't spin back on my side.
I'll let you know. I'm watching the live at this side, so I'll let you know.
All right. All right, so we got the bin right here, guys. And I think it's only fair that we start with my whiskey of the year, which is also one of your whiskeys of the year in the past. So, Bob Blair, 1990, 46%. This one's bottled in 2015, so I'm not sure if it's the version that you tried, but my thoughts are definitely replaceable. Most people watch that whiskey of the year video. Excellent stuff. Just one of the easiest jams I've ever been able to drink. How about you?
Okay. Yeah, Balblair 1990, fantastic. Often 25 years old plus. Very good presentation as well, 46% typically. I think for a whiskey of that age, it must be it must be even cheaper than Glenfarclas 25-year-old. And when you consider that as you sip it, it's quite mind-blowing that you can still pick up a whiskey of that age for that value. It's for here, it was kind of 90 to 100 pounds when you could buy it easily. You can still pick it up for not much more than 100 now. Wonderful whiskey. I would always love to have a bottle of that around, and I would give that a 9 out of 10.
So the Bunnahabhain 18-year-old. Have you had any experience with this one so far? You have.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, personally, I think if I were to re-review this whiskey, it would be very close to it was very close to an A+ for me in my marking scheme. But I think if I had to re-review it, it would easily be an A+, which means it's a 90 at least, just because of, again, easy to drink. Mine came with a little bit of a funny story because it's bottled on the bottle at 46 point something percent. I can't remember the exact number, but the LCBO scratched out the ABV because it came in a little bit less when they were running the tests at the LCBO. But other than that one little glitch, I guess you can call it, it's definitely a replaceable bottle. Fantastic stuff, and I would definitely recommend it to anybody.
Yep, Bunnahabhain 18 is another fantastic whiskey from the same stable as Lechick, Tobermory, and Deanston. 46.3%, as you say, natural colour, nice age statement on it of 18 years old. But every time I take a dram from it, it tastes older to me, if I'm honest. It's fantastic. It's a really good experience. But right now, the 12-year-old is pouring and tasting so nice that when you look at it from a price perspective, there's an argument to suggest that the 12 can beat it. However, that's a fantastic whiskey you have in your hands there. I would give it an 8.5 to 9, and I'd always love to have it around.
I've heard great things about the 12-year-old. I actually haven't had a chance to buy it just yet, but I will eventually. This is one that I think is near and dear to probably both of our hearts. One of the first smaller, lesser-known companies that really stole my heart is the Glengoyne, and this 18-year-old was probably, and still is probably, one of my favorite whiskeys. Just absolutely phenomenal, easy drinking. This is an everydayer, and if you can get it at a good price, which I recently found a store that sells it for very reasonable, $100 a bottle. I will definitely load up on this and have one to go at all times. The only thing is shipping and handling can make things a little bit more expensive, but yeah, one of my favorite whiskeys for sure.
Yeah, for me, Glengoyne 18 is like somebody's taken a typical Speyside style and taught it some table manners. It's just got that lovely, delicate presentation of sherry. It shows that sherry doesn't have to be a two-dimensional thing all about spice and dark fruits and chocolate. It shows that a sherry finished whiskey can be utterly complex. It's one of the classiest drams out there. It's still decent value. It's less than £100 in the UK and Europe, and it's worth every penny. It's an adorable whiskey. That's a 9 out of 10.
All right, moving along here. So far, so good. I think we still we're gaining steam. We have 63 and counting. So I'm gonna move on to one that I believe that we both have had. The Glenlivet. Have you tried the 25-year-old?
Yes. No, Glenlivet 25. No, not the 25.
All right, so I'll just give a quick speech on this one. It ended up being a little too light for my palate, and this was relatively early in my whiskey drinking years when I purchased this. I expected it to be a little bit more full-bodied. I still enjoyed it, and everybody I gave a sample to really enjoyed it. So for that reason alone, it would still get a decent mark. I would probably give it an 85, 86 if I had to, but definitely not one that I'm going to run out to buy again, especially at the climbing prices for this one.
Oh.
What's happening?
I keep dialing you. I'm playing this from the song I sent you on WhatsApp, and every time I press the play button, I call you on WhatsApp.
Oh, I see my phone doing some funny things over here. I wasn't really sure what was going on. That's awesome. So next one. I know you've tried this one, and I know this one's near and dear to your heart. Glen Farquhar's 25-year-old.
Yeah.
All right. So my thoughts, this is one of the first, probably just after the Glenlivet 25-year-old, one of the first 25-year-olds that I was able to purchase, mainly because it's very reasonable in price. Fantastic whiskey, super smooth. Once you get to about the halfway point, this thing turns into an absolute beast. It just opens right up, and you get way more flavor out of it. All the things that you thought might have been lacking in the first half drastically improve. So I gave this a great mark then, and I would still give this a great mark. This is an A for me. How about you?
Yeah, I really enjoy it. I think it's a fantastic whiskey, and the fact that you can pick up a 25-year-old Space Cider in this day and age for £120 is really quite an amazing thing. I think it's very good. I think that Glenfarclas a lot of the time can suffer and should be celebrated for it. They can suffer a bit from batch variation. So, you know, one bottle can be absolutely outstanding and a real showstopper, and the other one can, while it's still quite good, can have a few little edges and things on it, and it's part of the character of that distillery. I think it's fantastic. I think it's great value. I don't know what the ABV is on that bottle you're holding, but I think ours is 43 here.
That's right.
I always feel that it could do with, in 25-year-old presentation, we would probably pay 10, 20 pounds more just to knock that ABV up to 46, and it would just make it even better. But still, you can't take much away from it. Again, another 8.5 out of 10. Good stuff.
I agree. Fantastic stuff. So my bottles are not quite breaking over here. I guess I got to drop them a little higher. I'm not sure exactly. I haven't perfected the Aqvavitae drop and break, but hopefully I'll get it eventually. Maybe I don't want to do that because I am indoors at the moment. So.
That's right.
I feel like I should save this one for later because we've already talked about a Glengoyne. So I'll move on to this one, which I know you've tried. So I'm going to let you speak to this one first. I'm holding it here for everybody to see. It's the Glenmorangie Signet. I'll give my thoughts after you.
Well, the Signet for me was, I was a little bit cynical about that because it was a fairly expensive whiskey, and I didn't buy this. This was a friend of mine, the Whiskey Rev, bought this Signet, and he got it at travel retail. I think he probably paid 120 euros of that order for it. And because there was no age statement on it and things, I think I was a little bit suspicious. But as I tasted it, and then I tasted it again, and then I tasted it again, I suddenly realized just how much of an event whiskey it was. And I had to just kind of let loose on it and decide that, damn, it was quite compelling. I think it's a great example of what you can do with no age statement whiskies. The bottle that I got to know very, very well was probably 3 or 4 years ago. I don't know if it's still pouring that good, but based on my experience with it, I would say it's a fabulous whiskey.
Yeah. I think we were probably lucky enough to try around the same time. This one is a 2015. And my expectations of this one were through the roof just from the reading that I did on it. And at first, I got to admit, I was slightly disappointed. As I went down the bottle and as I really got into this whiskey, I fell in love with it. It's a lot better than I originally thought. But like I said, what tends to happen with me is my expectations are through the roof when I first open a bottle, especially when it's had excellent reviews. Then I have a chance to sit down and drink it a few times. The first one's going to be disappointing, and it just gets better after that usually. So this one I ended up really liking, and I think I gave it an A if I am not mistaken in my review. That's a heavy bottle, by the way. The lid on it alone is hefty. You can hurt some people.
That's right. That's right.
This is a cult favorite for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Highland Park, 18-year-old. Fantastic stuff. If you're new to peat, this is probably one of the best whiskeys to introduce you to it lightly. It can be a little interesting. I think it's only bottled at 43%. I would say overall, my expectations were exactly what it lived up to my expectations. I thought it was going to be great, and it was great. So I would definitely replace this bottle. I don't know about you, but what do you think?
I was worried that I would only have whiskies that I could really rave about and say were fantastic. We have the first one that I actually have a bit of a problem with. Highland Park, for me, the 12-year-old is always a staple. I always have it in the cupboard here. You can always get it really good value. The 18-year-old was for years a gift whiskey for me. My wife would get me it for Valentine's. She would get it for Christmas and things. And I always looked forward to it, and I loved it, and I shared it. And sometimes I got through it very, very quickly because of how much we enjoyed it. But over my left shoulder here on the shelf, I have a Highland Park 18, and I've had it for about a year and a half right now, and it's still half full. And a blind flight one night, I was suspicious that it was just me and my palate had changed or something had gone wrong. But everybody put it at the end of the flight. It was their least favorite whiskey up against whiskies that were far, far cheaper. Now, when we first started to share Highland Park 18, it was 60 to 65 pounds, and now it's 110, so it's practically doubled, in some places even more expensive than that. It slipped considerably, in my opinion. It might come back again, but I'm at the stage that I would be very wary of investing. The bottle I've got over my shoulder, I would only give 7 out of 10, and I wouldn't recommend anybody buys it without trying it first.
Oops. Did I mute you?
No.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I could totally see where you're coming from with that. It's getting to the unreasonable price zone in this area as well. There are some places in Alberta that still have it for about $130 Canadian, which I think is a great price. But now in Ontario, it's about $200. So that's a little too high for what you're getting. In my opinion, you can get better whiskey for cheaper, a la the next bottle that I know have tasted, but you haven't quite reviewed just yet. It's the Glenmorangie 18. Basically, everybody knows how I feel about this, so I'll let you take it away because they know I love it.
Well, over my left shoulder, I also have an Allardyce Open. It's about halfway down now. Listen, I would suggest that the Allardyce has, in some respects, it has the jump on the 15-year-old revival that everybody raves about. But if you want to pick up a 15-year-old revival, just now you're anywhere from 120 to 200 pounds just because of a lack of availability. So the Allardyce at about 80 pounds is really good value, because I would say it's even a wee bit better. It is a bit of, it's on the extreme side. So it's a real sherry punch, a sherry bomb, if you like. It's kind of all about the richness. It's all about the rich chocolatey flavors. It's all about deep, dark fruits and tobacco notes and things like that. So if that's not your style, it's not going to attract you in that direction, because it is an extreme example of its style. But for me, certainly if you're only going to have one rich dram of an evening, it's a perfect rich dram to have. That Allardyce is a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I completely agree. What do you think? We do 2 more, and then we'll just sit down and have a chat?
I'll follow you.
All right, sounds good. Let's make it 3 more. So I have the Tomatin 18, which even in Ontario at the time when I bought this is the older bottling. The newer bottles are a little bit more stylish, I guess you can say. Although I do like this older bottle. It's a lot easier to hold. Fantastic stuff. I find Tomatin can be, and I believe I'm pronouncing that right, but I'm sure you're going to correct me in about 2 seconds.
No, perfect. Carry on.
I find them to be a bit hot for the ABV. That's my only criticism of most tomatin. I found that with the 14-year-old port, which I love, but just a little hot. Same idea with the other ones that I've tried. Fantastic whiskeys all around and great bang for your buck, but I would give them an A, and I just think that they could be a little bit smoother. I guess maybe smoother is not the right word, but a little too hot.
I know what you mean. Sometimes you look at the ABV in the bottle and you doubt it because it tastes different to you. You know, you think that it's much softer than it suggests, or a lot of time, as you suggest with those tomatins, it's a little bit more spicy, right? I would say that if that's happening to you, start with something else first. Get your palate into the zone for it. And if you're still struggling, try a chunk of dark chocolate. It's quite amazing what it does to a whiskey if you're struggling with it. I find there's quite a few Highlanders out there that can be a bit on the peppery side. I find Glengarry a bit like that. I find Tomatin not particularly like that, but I know exactly what you're talking about. And I think that sometimes it just needs a slightly different approach. What I would say about Tomatin is the value of what they're putting out there, and still bringing a very, very decent engagement at decent value right across the range. That 18, it was exactly that bottle that you held up, so it wasn't the new livery. The Whiskey Rev and I shared a bottle of that 18. It was his, and we absolutely loved it. And it was one of those ones when the last dram went out of it, we realised that it would definitely be one of those ones that we would consider replacing again. I thought it was a very good whiskey. I would give it an 8 out of 10 all the time. And you can pick it up for, I think, about 60 to 65 pounds, which is damn good value in the UK.
Yeah, I completely agree. This one, I'm not sure we're going to agree on. I actually don't know your thoughts on it. At first, I thought I loved it. It's the Glenmorangie 18-year-old. As I worked my way through this bottle, it completely lost what originally attracted me to it, and for that reason, I'm not going to replace this bottle. I don't think it's bad whiskey. I think it's good whiskey. Something about it just didn't make me fall in love. My first sip was way better than my third, and so on and so forth. So for that reason, I'm not going to replace this. What are your thoughts on that? Oh, I just want to quickly stop and say thank you to Eric. Eric, thank you very much, buddy. You didn't have to do that. I really appreciate it. If you guys haven't already, check out Eric's channel. What's the question he's saying? Do either of you keep a notebook? Okay, so I don't keep a notebook. I'm the worst when it comes to that. I write my notes in my phone, and then 9 times out of 10, I forget to actually look at my phone and read it. What you can tell us about your note-taking, if it exists at all, and then talk about the bottle.
Yeah, I'll answer Eric's question. Is that I know that I should take notes, because I think the action of taking notes is very effective. You remember the whiskies when you write down their names and details like ABV and things. And as you're writing notes, you also engage with the whiskey a wee bit more. You think about it a bit more. However, I'm like you, Rob. I'm a bit lazy. I rely on my smartphone far too much, and I snap pictures of bottles and labels. Even when I buy bar pours, I ask the bartender to let me see the bottle so I can take a snap and things, and that's how I do it. I think taking notes is a fantastic thing that we should do more of. On the Glenmorangie, and thanks Eric for the $10 donation to Rob. He really deserves it. On the Glenmorangie, the 18, can I ask you, have you tried the 25, the quarter century?
I have not. I have not tried the 25.
If you don't enjoy the 18, you're not going to enjoy the quarter century. That's my opinion, just my opinion. I think the 18 has more to offer than the quarter century. I think that I agree with you completely. One of the reasons I was cynical about Signet is because of how flat I found a lot of Glenmorangies to be. Now, I know that that's not always the case, and I know that it's not the case for everybody, but that was my kind of the place I was with Glenmorangie at that time. And there's not much come out of Glenmorangie that's really grabbed my attention, if I'm honest, outside of the Signet, I would say. And I'm actually a big fan of the 10. The 10-year-old is back in the UK now with an age statement again. That Pineapple Blast is back, that kind of typical Highland style. Loving the 10-year-old. The rest of the range I've not engaged with at all. So no, I would not replace the Glenmorangie 18.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think some of the specialty Glenmorangies I've enjoyed, but none of them make me desire a second bottle, which I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I know they have a huge fan base, so everybody has a difference of opinion and different tastes. But this one, I think we agree on. This will be the last one that we do tonight, and then maybe I'll just do what a couple of the reviewers said in the chat, and just, or the viewers, sorry, said in the chat, and just clear out the rest. But the, the Glengoyne 25-year-old. This was given to me as a gift, and at the time when this was not even an option for me because I wasn't buying from anywhere else other than Ontario, and this has never come to Ontario. I thought it was probably the best gift I could ever receive, and I was correct, because although I found the first bit of it a bit hot, it just continues to improve and improve and improve. And it turned out to be one of my favorite whiskeys of all time. I think it's absolutely incredible stuff. Bottled at 48%, unchill filtered, no added color, which the no added color thing Glengoyne has become known for. And I haven't been disappointed with one of their expressions. I think everything they do is fantastic. I'm a little bit of a fanboy. You gave me the one sample of a whiskey that I can't buy from them, which was the Teapot Dram. And I absolutely adored it, along with all their other things. So Glengoyne 25 is fantastic in my opinion. I'll definitely replace it. I actually do have a replacement bottle for it.
Glengoyne do a decent job at 10 and 12 years old. The 15 is okay. But I would say that the magic starts to happen at that 18. The 21 is wonderful. And just over my left shoulder, you might spot the 25 is sitting there. And literally, you can see all my whiskies are out of their cartons. They're out of their tubes. And that's because I like to see the whiskey. I like to see the color. I like to keep track of where the level is. And I just think that in an environment like where I'm sitting just now, which is actually our dining room, it's just nicer to have a bottle out rather than a cardboard carton or whatever. So, but I would say that Glengoyne 25, I should probably lock that thing up, because I've really got to fight myself to stay away from it. It is just a fantastic whiskey prospect. There is that kind of rich sherry thing that I was talking about with Allardyce and the Glenfarclas 25. That's present there, but there is so much more going on. So much more going on. I actually asked Glengoyne. I said to them, "Are you sure there's no smoke in the Glengoyne 25?" And he said, "No, there's absolutely no smoke whatsoever. But what you're probably picking up, and what some people pick up, is a slight hint of barrel char, or maybe from toasted sherry barrels or something like that. I don't know. But there is, you just, as you sip it, there's more and more and more and more goes on. It's a wonderful whiskey. Can I just mention the value of it as well? It's a 25-year-old whiskey, and they were selling it at the distillery and online as well for £250, £260, which is just fantastic. And yes, probably because Glengoyne's not one of the big names. It's smaller. It's only 2 million litres a year. It's not the biggest distillery, but you taste the quality of it. Again, 15 years and beyond, it's wonderful stuff. And I think the magic of that 25-year-old, I kind of wish that I'd just gone into debt at the time and bought 2 bottles.
I was lucky to purchase a second bottle for a very reasonable price. It's, like you said, it's fantastic stuff. And I'm glad you mentioned the smoke that you pick up from it when you emailed the distillery, because I got a lot of flack for mentioning that in my video. I mentioned that I pick up a barrel char type.
Was this in the Glengoyne 25?
That's right. The
Glengoyne. Did you say that in the video?
I did. So if you check out my review, my original review of the Glengoyne 25-year-old, I mentioned that there's a hint of smoke, and I feel like it's a barrel type smoke, a barrel char type smoke, because they're very adamant in saying that it's never peated, right? So
absolutely. No, I was at the distillery, and I said, "Come on, I taste smoke. I taste smoke every time I have it. If I sit with it long enough, I just get this wisp of smoke." And it's not peat. It's not a peat hit. It's not kind of any of that medicinal or iodine. It's literally like an ever so slightly, like the taste that you would have on your fingers after holding a burnt match. That it's that kind of, maybe that doesn't describe it well, but that's what I would get from it. Not every time, but just sometimes. And the guys there were like absolutely adamant. Of course, we would tell you if we ever used any peated barley in our whiskies, but we don't. So there you go.
Yeah, and I agree totally. I don't pick it up as a peated type smoke. It definitely does. It reminds me of my first experience with certain bourbons, because I remember someone poured me a bourbon. This was probably 10 years ago. I was 23 or so. And my first initial reaction was, wow, that tastes a little bit smoky. It's not like, it tastes like something's on fire. And the guy looked at me like, bourbon's not smoky. What are you talking about? But it's that same idea that I got from the Glengoyne 25-year-old. It was that barrel char that I was picking up. Yeah.
And of course we know that in the bourbon industry, they char to really quite deep stages, and the wood can be significantly charred. They even measure it by alligator and followed by a number, right? You know more about bourbon than I do, but I know that sherry casks are not treated in that way. Who's maybe not all of them, maybe some of them are. I think it's more of a light toasting that sherry casks would get, but it's odd. And sometimes you can convince yourself that there are flavors in a whiskey that aren't really there, but you're mislabeling another flavor, or it's just something that you're picking up because you remember it from the last time you had that dram or something. That can happen as well. But sometimes I've forgotten that I picked up a smoky note. And this does happen to me in bourbons as well. And you go back to it again and you can pick that up. So it's odd. That's funny. And when you said that about, you said that in your review, I probably watched your review, but that's not in my memory at all. So that's bizarre that that's happened to both of us.
Yeah. Well, it makes me feel better because you're far more experienced with Scotch than I am. So when I hear that you picked up a similar thing and I got a lot of flack for it, it makes me feel, I don't know what the word is. I guess, that I was on the right track.
I don't agree that I'm more experienced than you, Rob. You're doing a fantastic job there. You've hit some high-end whiskies in a very short space of time. And what you lack in years, you're making up for in your accelerated journey now. Look at that. That's a Balblair 83 sitting on the left-hand side there. That's an absolutely interstellar dram right there. Have you opened and tasted that yet?
I have not. And honestly, the only reason I haven't opened it is I would have opened it tonight with you because I know you love it, but you didn't have a bottle on your end, so I didn't want to drink something that you weren't able to access tonight. So that's why we went with the Anak 1975, which is still sitting here pretty. I've finished my glass of Glen Scotia 15, and honestly, I know Peter said he liked it, just didn't love it. Maybe I was suggesting that he hated it, and he definitely didn't hate it. He wouldn't have given it to me if he hated it. But I really like it. I really like the 15-year-old. It's checking the boxes that I look for when I look for a whiskey. So I guess the only thing to do now is to move on. How long have we been on for? We've been on for almost an hour. So this one, we poured this relatively early, I believe, right?
Yeah, so this has been probably sitting here for the last half hour or so. And in between times, I've just kind of been nosing and sipping the 24 alongside this 1975, and they're clearly siblings. But I stand by what I say about that 1975 not being a beginner's whiskey. It's wonderful. I can still taste it. It's got a fantastic long, but dry and quite mineral finish. And the note, the strongest note I get from it, I now pick up in almost every Anak that I taste. And I'm going to wait for you to enjoy that and just kind of try and appraise it a little bit before I say what the note is, because I know I'll lead you.
Man, I absolutely love that.
And that's it straight out the bottle. That's it still quite tight.
Well, what amazes me is this is cask strength at 44.2%. So it's a 39-year-old whiskey. It's not a young whiskey. what I've found through my experience so far with older whiskeys is they tend to be peppery off the hop. They tend to, out of the bottle, be extremely peppery. I noticed that with my Glenmorangie 25-year-old, and I think I've expressed to you my, just being upset with the fact that it's not as good as I expected. But this
Is that the grandeur?
That's the grandeur, yeah.
So what ABV is that?
It's 50.6, 50.1,
Okay.
something like that.
So cast strength probably.
And if I had to guess, it's probably a combination of, I'm going to grab it right here. It's just a little heavy, so I'm going to use two hands so I don't drop it and break it. If I had to guess, it's probably a combination of 3 barrels, 50.6. And it's extremely hot. Way hotter than I expected. Way hotter than it should be for a cast strength whiskey. The 2002 single cast strength that I had from Glenmorangie was less hot without water. So, needless to say,
that's one of the problems I have with that Highland Park 18. Actually, that it's sometimes when you open a bottle, it can taste a bit spicy, a bit hot, a bit peppery, and then just even a couple of days, a couple of weeks, it settles down quite quickly. But that Highland Park that I have here is very much like that. It's sharp and rough around the edges, and every time, despite it not being high ABV, that's what you taste from it. I think it's just an ugly batch, perhaps. But it's interesting what you've picked up with that Glenmorangie. I'm quite surprised at that because it's not a cheap bottling, is it?
No, that one in particular cost me $500, and to replace that bottle, it would cost me probably $700 now. So instead of replacing that bottle, what I did is I bought 2 of these, and I'm extremely glad that I did, because the herbal note on the tail end of this, I can't quite pick out what kind of herb it is, but it's very herbally at the end. And
I'm gonna tell you what it is, and you're gonna say yes right away. But
go for it.
It's cloves.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just got a beautiful tea-like nose to it. Yeah. And the cloves definitely pick up at the end on the finish. It's fantastic. I love it.
I mean, it's I know it's a 39-year-old whiskey and we would expect this, but when you know that you know that it's an old whiskey, it literally takes you into a really kind of dank old house. You're in a leather chair in the study and it's full of old books and things. There's a little bit of, I get the tea thing that you're talking about, definitely, but there's a slight kind of shoe polish type note as well, like almost like a ever so slight waxy chemical-y type note.
Yeah,
but this is probably as much as I've ever enjoyed it, and the bottle has gone down quite a bit. Where are we? It's over here. This is halfway through now. So Craig, my brother, I'm just going to show him I only poured this much, and I'll pour no more until we're together again, my friend. Sorry.
I think we chose wisely when we chose our pre-drink or precursor to this dram, because they complement each other, I feel.
Well, that was happenstance. There was no intelligence or pre-thinking went into that, right?
I was hoping you would take some credit for that. This is beautiful, though. This is really great.
Let's see if there's any comments coming in. I'm just going to grab the ones that are highlighted to me. Whiskey Throttle is saying that he loves tomatin. I'm trying to watch the comments on the tablet, but Eric Waite, I've just passed his Eric Waite is doing a live stream on a Sunday now. He's calling it the Whiskey Church. He's quite an interesting guy. And on Monday through the day, I started to watch little bits of his sermon, and then I ended up watching his entire 2-hour stream through the day, just in little kind of 15, 20-minute chunks. He's quite an interesting guy. So I don't know if you're getting a chance to watch Eric there.
Yeah, I actually was. I sat in on that one. I watched it live. It was great. He does a great job.
Oh, that's right. You were commenting. Yeah. Travis Souders is saying, do you like the Astar this year. I think I tried to comment. I tried to reply to you, Travis. Jason Whiskey Wise has said he's going to send me up a sample of it, but it's not one that, you know, when you've got a limited amount of money to spend on whiskey, and I already spend far too much, honestly, but you do tend to really think carefully. And my experience of the Glenmorangies, the limited editions, are that, you know, they're not for me. They're for other folk, people that like Glenmorangie, and people that want to buy that type of product. I have heard good things about the Astar, the 2017 Astar. To my memory, I haven't tried it. Travis, would you recommend it? Whiskey Throttle is saying, he's saying, good question. Metalman71 is saying, I killed a Glengoyne 12 in 2 weeks, couldn't stay away from it. Well, it sounds like he's getting bitten by the Glengoyne bug as well, and it's a damn good distillery.
It really is. It really is.
Somebody asked me if it was an entire Lagavulin shelf back there, and yes, that's my Lagavulin fetish shelf over my right shoulder there. I do like a Lagavulin, and I'm trying to see if there's anybody highlighted questions to you, Rob, but I can't. It doesn't highlight to me.
Yeah. Well, there was a question earlier. Mike, That's Crazy said that in my last live stream, I tasted a sample of the Glen Scotia. I think I might have just been having a different night. Maybe it was, I'm not sure which one it was. I wonder if he's referring to the night that I tried the Glendronach 25. I like it. I liked it the first time I tried it. I went back to it. I liked it again, and then the last, maybe in that live stream, something must have happened with my palate, but I really do enjoy it. It went down nicely tonight, that's for sure. And this Anak is one of, in my opinion, the most easy drinking aged whiskeys, just because of how light it is on the palate, but not light in the sense of viscosity, light in the sense of that peppery note you don't really get, in my opinion. I don't know, maybe you're experiencing something different on your end, Roy, but I don't get any pepperiness. It's cask strength. Obviously, the ABV is low for a cask strength at 44.2, but just super, super smooth. And
yeah, I mean, to me, it's definitely one of those ones that as we're chatting here and things, I realise that we're doing it a disservice, because this needs a dark room and nobody else in there with you just to sit and spend a couple of hours with it. It's definitely one of those whiskies. And I know if my brother is watching this tonight, he's going to be literally spitting through his teeth.
He's probably cringing for sure. I don't know if you pick it up, but on the nose, I pick up, like, it almost smells syrupy. Like, it smells like it's going to be viscous, like quite thick in viscosity.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably you're not going to be able to pick that up too clearly, but yeah, it's doing a decent job of clinging to the glass there.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not as thick as you might imagine, but it's got a nice mouth feel. And what you said, it's quite fresh, it's quite light, and I keep thinking of that tea note that you picked up on. There's a kind of black tea, a tea-like development through it as well, but it is minerally, and the herbal thing is there, the eucalyptus thing is there, and the clove thing is definitely there. On the finish especially, now I can taste the cloves coming through. And we have a sweet in the UK, a medicinal sweet called Lockets, which is a kind of eucalyptus type thing, and I'm getting a slight bit of eucalyptus as well. But it's one of these really, really complex whiskies that you could just sit and spend absolutely hours with. It's an absolute delight. Yeah,
I agree. I'm really happy with this purchase. I was concerned because when you spend anywhere north of $300 Canadian on a whiskey, you want something exceptional, and this was almost double that. So,
well, I have to tell you, Rob, I paid $325 for mine, and that was 3 years ago.
Yeah, so I paid my recent bottle. I paid $520 sorry, I paid $530 for one bottle and then $600 for the other. So not cheap, obviously, but it's a 39-year-old Scotch. So I think it's justified.
And you do a very good job of up trading. You're able to, so your $600 is a lot less than a lot of other people's $600 because you do a quite good job of trading up, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, pretty much. I traded. Essentially, what happened is I traded a George T. Stagg for this bottle, which is in Alberta about $430 to $450, depending on where you find it. That's Canadian dollars. And then I traded my extra William LaRue Weller for this bottle, which I think, in my opinion, were fantastic deals. But on the person that's getting those bottles on the other end, they're also getting excellent whiskey, which is really hard to come by. So you sacrifice in some areas to get.
Absolutely. And I think if you like your bourbons, you like your Canadians, but your heart is probably in Scotch, I think, right?
That's right. Yeah. For sure. I'm a huge fan of all whiskeys. I really like you said, I like my bourbons. I used to love Canadian whiskey, and I'm coming back to it now because they're coming out with a whole bunch of new things that are really interesting. But Scotch really stole my heart probably about, I don't know, I want to say at least 5 years ago. And then lately it's just been Scotch for a very long time. I love bourbon, but when I'm sitting down with my nightcap, it's got to be a Scotch, in my opinion.
It's certainly a very varied landscape, and the more you get into it, the more you realize that it's going to be difficult to exhaust that landscape. Right? It's just as soon as you think you've got the measure of it, you realize that you've just opened another can of worms, right? And there's a whole new layer to discover. There's quite a few comments coming in. Whiskey Throttle is saying, Aqvavitae, I hope you still like me. I like Glenmorangie 10 as my go-to dram. I did actually mention that Glenmorangie 10 is still worthy because it's at reasonable money. It's got an age statement back on there. It's that pineapple blast of fruit. Don't worry, Whiskey Throttle. I like Glenmorangie 10. Travis Souders is saying, he's talking about the Astar here. I think he said, I do like it, but for the price of $109 US. Wow. I won't replace it, but I'm glad I bought it. He's given it an 8.5 out of 10 for the Astar. To give you a comparison, it's similar to Deanston Virgin Oak at cask strength. Now that's interesting because Deanston Virgin Oak is, well, here it's £35. It's much, much cheaper than a limited edition from Glenmorangie. But that kind of makes sense because Astar is the American oak aged Glenmorangie, isn't it? From I can't remember the name of the mountains. And
I believe you're right, yeah.
I can't remember the mountains. It starts with an O. Whiskey Throttle is saying, Whiskey in the Six, there is no whiskey in Alberta. He's trying to keep you from ram raiding Alberta stock, right?
Right.
Superb.
It's funny you mentioned how no matter how many whiskey reviews you do, well, you said something along those lines where you're never going to catch up and go through the whole entire lineup. I remember when I first started the channel, my wife's like, yeah, but eventually how many more whiskeys can you actually review? There's only so many whiskeys. And I said to my wife very nicely, you have no idea what you're talking about. Just because there are thousands, and even if I had, look at Ralphie, he can continue to find new whiskeys every day. He's been doing this for quite some time now. And he hasn't even touched the surface of what there is out there. Like, there's always new whiskeys coming out. There's always whiskeys that we overlook in the past, and then maybe eventually we'll come back to them if we're lucky enough to find them. So I think.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing that plays into that dynamic as well is that whiskey generally is a very transient thing. What we know is whiskey being made, now in the last 5 years or so is not the same as the whiskey that they made 15 or 20 years ago or 15 or 20 years before that. And it's not going to be the same as they make 15 or 20 years from now. So you've got that dynamic in play as well. So that the whiskey's changing over time. And, with that amount of variation and the amount of world whiskies that's coming on the scene now as well, every country, and it's almost like literally every week I've heard 1-2 more distilleries that's popping up here and there that I've never heard before, let alone tried. I've never even heard of these whiskies. So it's just a great time. You're never going to be exhausted or run out of whiskies to try. I mean, even the Jim Murrays or the Ian Buxtons or the Ralphies, as you mentioned, Ralphie, they're only single guys. They've not got a chance.
Yeah. Well, actually, Peter White mentions that Serge from Whiskey Fun has reviewed 13,000 whiskeys, and he's yet to review the one that we're drinking tonight, which is the Anak 1975. I believe he reviewed the Anak 35-year-old, which I know that you've tried as well. But yeah, that just goes to show you 13,000 whiskeys, imagine. And he still hasn't tapped into it. Like, I still find that I'm looking for a review on certain whiskeys and he doesn't have it in his portfolio, you know? So
yeah, I hadn't tried that 35-year-old. It's just that there was another 1975 bottling that was, I think it, but it was bottled at 35 years old. And I know that when you were negotiating your deal for that, I just asked you to double check that it wasn't that one, that it was the 1975 vintage label one. I haven't tried it, but this is lovely. This is the fizz and the spice and the flavors that this is leaving is fantastic. I just went back and tried a little sip of the 24-year-old, and I got the biggest blast of salted roasted peanuts I've ever had from any whiskey ever, just by tasting the two in contrast. Don't you find that when you're sitting sipping a whiskey and you can't really fathom things, you'd sip it in contrast with something else, and they both start to come alive.
yeah, you can definitely pinpoint the differences when you're sipping two different whiskeys. It makes it a lot easier to do that. I also find that when two people are drinking the same dram, things that I might not normally taste on a daily basis, or maybe even just might not be able to articulate, you'll pick out or I'll pick out, and then we kind of share that, and then we can both find those things, which I always found cool.
Travis is saying the Ozark Mountains, that's the Asta. That's why he bought it in the first place. Eric Waite is saying, Aqvavitae, I totally agree. The technological advancements and cleanliness in the wine and whiskey world has been huge over the past couple of decades. Barrel management alone has had a lot of improvement. Yes. Well, it certainly had a lot of influence, that's for sure, Eric. I think, I don't know, sometimes I get a bit excited about whiskey right now, and I consider that the industry's actually caught up a little bit with demand, and a lot of the newer whiskies that are coming out are actually better than the ones in the past, whereas for years I was kind of in a heart sink zone where it felt like I'd missed the sweet spot and all the good whiskies had gone, and we were just going to have this kind of efficient, homogenized style of whiskey to look forward to, nothing better than that. But that's not been the case the last couple of years. There's been so many good whiskies and good distilleries that have really stepped up and given us some things to rave about, which I think is exciting.
Mike, That's Crazy says that the whiskey we're drinking tonight is actually older than me, and he's correct. I was born in 1984, so this is actually technically the birth of this whiskey was 9 years before mine. So, but it's a 39-year-old, so it's actually only 5 years older. Sorry.
Well, that makes me feel very old because that whiskey is 5 years younger than me.
I meant to be 6 years older.
Yeah.
Welsh Toro just joined us, I think, because I haven't seen him in the chat earlier. Am I correct on that?
He's in. He's here. Welsh is here.
And yeah, it's very late for both of you, but I believe it might be even later for him. He's in Spain. Am I correct in saying that?
No, I thought that he would be, but he's in Wales.
Okay, so I knew that he was Welsh based on
yeah.
Okay, so he is in Wales, though. Okay, that makes sense.
His wife is Spanish, so that's where the Spanish connection is, and he spends a lot of time in Spain. But yeah, he's in England. He's living in England right now, but he's a Welsh guy. Yeah.
So the time difference is the same then in Scotland and England, I'm assuming.
Yes. We're on the same time zone. Yeah, absolutely. We're just an hour behind the rest of Europe. So yeah, The continental Europe is an hour ahead of us, so they're just past midnight. We'll start to lose a lot of the Europeans now. But the guys in the UK, we're always up for staying up late.
Yeah, you guys tend to stay up later than most. I find that. There was a couple late reviews that I've done. So it was 10 o'clock my time, and I see Welsh Toro pouring in. I'm just absolutely shocked that he's still up. I have seen my name highlighted a few times here, so I should probably go back and check out some of these. But these guys seem to be entertaining themselves for the most part.
Yeah, we've got 66 according to my side in just now, so it's quite a busy chat. It's scrolling past at a decent rate, so It can be tough. I'm terrible at multitasking. My next live is Thursday night, 2 nights from now, and I don't have a moderator so far, although my wife has offered to help me out, which would be fantastic because it can just be so difficult to juggle that kind of trying to keep the questions and comments and also continuity, so that if somebody asks a question and you ask one back, it can end up just dropping off a cliff and things. But it's still good fun, and as long as the people in the chat room are able to hang out with each other a little bit, it takes the pressure off, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think they do a good enough job entertaining themselves that we're just a secondary platform, I guess. We're the platform that they can enjoy each other, I guess. That's well,
we've opened our doors. It's our house, right? We've opened the doors and they've come in and they've found a place to hang out and chat, and we don't need to be the ones that's chatting to all of them.
Exactly. So Whiskey Throttle asks, I don't know if you've already answered this question. I might have turned to get something over here, but have either of us reviewed any Adelphi?
Adelphi, a decent independent bottler. They do. I've tried a couple of Adelphis over the years. I don't own any. And an independent bottler. So yeah, the trouble with independent bottlers is that, most of it, the majority of it is single cask or a vatting of just a couple of casks and things. So to ask for opinions on it, it's really, really narrow band question to ask. And unless you've tried exactly that expression, it's kind of difficult to comment. But I would say that most independent bottlers, you try and go with a personal recommendation or get yourself in a position, a tasting, a festival, whatever, where you get a chance to try it first, especially if it's an older, more expensive one, for sure.
So Travis says that he usually has to rewatch the streams because he gets so engaged in the chat that he misses too much. I think we've all been there. I'm guilty of doing the same myself. Sometimes when the rest of the guys are doing their lives, I tend to be in the chat and just chatting away, forgetting to actually pay attention to what's being said.
Sean Mick has asked me what my favourite distilleries in Scotland are, and that's really fluid. That changes a lot. Rob, I'm going to ask you to nominate maybe your top 3 distilleries, but right now, my distillery of the year last year would be Deanston, so they're worth a mention just because of how good value the product coming out of Deanston is right now. I love Clenleash. I love Clenleash. I love the barley sugar. I just love the style and the texture of that whiskey. And probably if I was pushed, it would be Lagavulin as well. So Lagavulin, Clenleash, and Deanston right now. But if you ask me tomorrow, it's probably changed. What about you, Rob?
I'm dead set on something, and I tend to be very loyal to things. It's kind of one of my flaws, I guess you can say. I tend to be very loyal, and because of this channel, I don't have that opportunity anymore. I can't just stick to one distillery. I have to be diverse. I have to try different things, which is great because it's making me do things that are against my nature. I have a whole bunch of bottles open here. In the past, that would never be the case. I would have maybe 3, finish those, open another 1 or 2 or 3, only ever having 3 bottles open at a time. And
now look, you've got furniture that's literally creaking with the weight of your collection.
Exactly. So I think if I had to choose today, and it fluctuates, you said to choose 3. I'm going to choose 5 just because it's so hard for me to only choose 3. I think it would have to be Brook-Laddie. I love Brook-Laddie. I think I haven't tried a Brook-Laddie that I don't like so far anyway. I've tried some that I like less than others, obviously, but just everything I've tried from them, I absolutely adore. I'm going to have to say Glengoyne for sure. Glengoyne is fantastic, and it was one of the first smaller distilleries to, like I said earlier, capture my heart, so I have to mention them. Glendronach, if I don't mention them, despite how I feel about that 25-year-old, I'd be doing myself a disservice. I absolutely love their stuff. I love sherried whiskey, it's no secret. So it's natural for me to be very attracted to what Glendronach brings to the table. And I'm really starting to love, and I know that there's a connection there, the Balblairs and Anaks. I think they're fantastic distillery. I think they're the same distillery. Am I not? Am I correct? Or
no? They're both owned by Inverhouse.
Okay,
but Balblair's quite a bit east and a little bit north of Knockdhu, where Anak comes from. So Anak comes from Knockdhu Distillery, which is probably where the confusion is. They changed it to Anak in order to distinguish themselves from Nakandhu, which sounds a bit similar to Knockdhu, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're both owned by Inverhouse. Yeah.
Okay. So I knew there was a connection there, and I love both of both expressions. I think they're fantastic. So far, I've loved things coming from both distilleries. So I just want to say a quick thank you to Jay Fretless. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. He says, keep up the great work. I hope I'm doing a great job. I do my best, and I'm juggling a lot of things, and I don't get to edit as, I don't get to fine tune my videos as nicely as the gentleman sitting across continent, but also across this video camera. He does an incredible channel, and every single video that he pops up is professionally made, in my opinion, and just, I can't say enough about this.
There's a difference, Rob, is that yeah, you might be right that I spend a lot more time editing, but the difficulty there is that I'm under a lot of time pressure at home, and really there's an argument for me adopting your style, because you still manage to bring it week after week and put out the content. And I think a lot of people don't really care that it's professionally done sometimes, whereas I struggle. I know that even if I get the filming done, I get the idea and then I film it, then I've got to sit around for hours and hours to kind of put the thing together. But what I have been super impressed with is the fact that my subscribers have been patient, very patient with me. And although they do ask for videos and they're continually asking, they seem to be okay with that kind of style and that pace. So as long as that happens, as long as that continues to happen, I'm always going to be very, very grateful. It's very cool.
Well, I think what your channel offers them is a fine-tuned product, and then you do your lives, which gives them the ability to interact with you and do what a lot of people get to do on a weekly basis with popping up a lot of material. You're still giving them that opportunity to see a lot of material from you with the lives. I mean, you tend to do them, I guess, every other week, sometimes every week, depending on.
Yeah, what I'm doing with the lives just now is the first live of the month, which is the second Thursday of the month. So I do second and last Thursdays. Is that the first show I'll have a guest, and then the last show I'll try and do it solo. And that's kind of the pattern I'm sitting with just now. And every other week just gives me a bit of a break in between times. And it also means that, you're not kind of, if you go live every week, I think that maybe, I don't know, maybe people wouldn't get tired of it. Maybe they would, I don't know. But it just feels right to me to do it every other week just now. So I'm doing lives every 2 weeks, or 2 lives a month, let's say. And I was privileged to have you join me last year. That was really cool. I've had Whiskey Throttle asking, do they have their own still? I think he's referring to Adelphi. And Adelphi are building Ardnamurchan distillery on the west coast. So yeah, they have their own distillery now, and a lot of independent bottlers are going down that route. And Travis has suggested that Clynelish, Glengoyne and Lagavulin are his top 3, which is not far away from me. He's only one different from me there, and the one that he's swapped out is Glengoyne, which tomorrow, Travis, that could be my top 3 as well. Yeah, fantastic. John Paul van der Hoven is saying, I have a Carnmore Benrinnes 17-year-old 1996 bottling. Have you emptied your bottle? My Benrinnes is an 18-year-old. I have a 17-year-old Carnmore Dilluin. I have emptied my 18-year-old Benrinnes and I've replaced it with another one because it was so fabulous. That's a difficult bottle to find now. Sorry, Rob, I'm just trying to respond to questions because I realize that
I appreciate it because with my ADD, I've definitely missed a whole bunch of comments. I don't know.
It's really difficult. Do you know what I was so impressed with the Scotch Test Dummies live the other night is that Tracy from Glenfiddich, she was literally talking and then would just quickly punctuate her sentence and answer a quick question or say hello to somebody who'd popped up in the chat and then get back on track without even skipping a beat. I just couldn't fathom how that was.
Absolute professional. I couldn't believe it. Even just the singing, her demeanor. She's a lovely person. She did a great job, in my opinion.
Yeah, a gorgeous lady, utterly charismatic, talented, intelligent. But the thing that struck me is that, number one, she was actually very knowledgeable and she was more than happy to talk about whiskey in a very general sense. It didn't have to all be about Glenfiddich for her as well. I really enjoyed that show. I thought it was terrific the other night. Superb.
Yeah. Speaking of the Scotch Test Dummies, I want to give them a quick shout out. They're always helping everybody out, and I think it's only right that I do the same by giving them a shout out. If you guys haven't jumped on their channel and subscribed, please do so now. Do the same for the Scotch 4 Dummies, No Nonsense Whiskey Vin, Jason Whiskey Wise, Trenny and C, Mark from Whiskey Whistle,
Swami from Malted in Montreal.
Swami from Malted in Montreal.
Keith down in Ohio, the Malted Man Cave.
Malted Man Cave, that's right. Phil from Whiskey Wednesday. I'm missing somebody for sure.
We always miss something.
I don't want to miss this guy because I feel like I missed him the last time, and I'm definitely not going to miss him again. It's Lloyd from Getting Weird with the Beard. I love the guy. Great guy. So go subscribe to his channel. And of course, if you haven't already, this lovely gentleman on my channel tonight, Roy, please go to Aqvavitae if you haven't already and subscribe to his channel because you'll learn a lot. He's a very knowledgeable individual and he does a great job. Roy, we're nearing the hour-and-a-half mark. I'm thinking maybe now just tell us what to expect on your channel in the next little while and where these guys can find you maybe.
Well, I know that you wanted me to mention, you wanted me to talk about, I think, the recycled videos, how that came about. But, you know, I want to do more of that. I want to do more of the recycled videos because they're very popular. People like them. And but the difficulty is that you have to have empty bottles, right? You have to have, are you still there, Rob?
I am.
Okay. I've lost you. I've lost the window. I don't know what's happened. Don't worry. Yeah, so you have to have 15 empty bottles. And if I did a recycled video every month, you know, it would be more than just my wife that would be worried about me, right? So what happens is that I wait until I've got the empty bottles there and, you know, more or less every couple of months. Well, that was a year ago. My channel actually on the 17th of February was 1 year old. And the first recycled video I did was March last year. So I'm coming up on a year and I've just put out my 4th. So that suggests 4 to 5 videos a year at 15 bottles a time. So that's me getting on for, you know, 60 to 75 bottles, which is probably be about the same amount of bottles that a regular reviewer will review, I suppose. And as long as I'm sharing it, right, and all my whiskey gets shared. Yeah. But that's about as many recycled videos as you can reasonably expect from me because I'm not just going to take bottles for everybody and you know, just review bottles. It has to be bottles that I know quite intimately and I know quite well. I'm going to continue with the live thing, probably with a break in the summer. But on top of that, I'm going to continue to do the kind of whiskey concept videos, the how-tos, the kind of explaining about, you know, the things that interest me about whiskey. I have to find topics that I'm impassioned about. If I'm passionate about it, I feel like I can talk about it. So I like to talk about how whiskey's changed over the years. I like to talk about specific areas of whiskey, like specific distilleries, perhaps, a specific series, independent bottlers. There's a video that I was working on recently that I need to do some more work on it for Flora and Fauna series, for example, and things like that. But I'm just going to continue to just make videos about things that I'm impassioned about and hope that I can keep it interesting that way. You've just had another super chat in from the star that is
my buddy Daniel. This guy is he's an incredible supporter of all of us. He watches all of our shows, and he has only great things to say about all of us, which I think has to do something with the amount of whiskey that he drinks on a daily basis, because he enjoys us all a little too much. But he's a great guy, honestly. I'm all kidding aside. Daniel continues to support me, and thank you so much, buddy. Not just me, he supports all of us. So thank you so much, buddy.
Get over to watch, to subscribe to Whiskey Throttle on his Instagram feed as well, because he'll just come on and do impromptu live videos and things, and you can drop in and as he's hanging out next to his fireplace with a whiskey and things. And what's interesting about that, this kind of community aspect that's building up around YouTube, which I think is awesome, really awesome, is that, you know, the viewers and the commenters are becoming more and more involved. I mean, you saw maybe the Ralphie live tribute that I did, where I got Scott Monroe, who's in here tonight. Hey, Scott. And also Welsh Toro. And I got them in because I wanted to involve them as Ralphie fans. And then you've got Swami had a Whiskey Throttle on his channel and things. So there's that ability now to involve people that, you know, they don't have to set up their own YouTube channel. As long as they've got a webcam and a microphone, they can hang out. You know, they can use the live platform to get together and enjoy whiskey. Okay, we can't breathe the same air, but this is a nice way, a nice substitute for that, right?
That's right. I completely agree. Kilted Moose Scott is saying hello to you.
He's just across town.
Yeah, honestly, it's incredible what's happening in the whiskey world, and I think this is just scratching the surface. I think things are going to be very different, and we were all very surprised and excited when Ralphie hit 100,000 subscribers. I think we're going to see a lot more of that, because we're getting a lot of people that are very knowledgeable about whiskey, that really want to understand whiskey better, and they're going to challenge us to be on top of things, to make sure that we know our things. We know our facts, and we know our whiskey, and we've tried lots of different types of whiskey, and they're going to call us out on it when we don't. And I think that's important, because it holds us all accountable for what we're doing here, because we're not trying to feed anybody BS. We're trying to help people make educated decisions, maybe help people, maybe not necessarily educated decisions, but give people an honest opinion about certain things so that they can go out and spend their hardworking money on something valuable. Something worth enjoying, you know. So I think it's amazing what's happening. And I can't wait to see what 5 years from now is going to look like, in 10 years. And I think we'll have a conversation 5 or 10 years from now, very similar to this one, live, probably with a lot more viewers, although we've had up to 69 tonight, which is pretty awesome in my opinion.
Well, I think that the biggest thing is that we're all doing this out of passion for whiskey. Nobody's really been able to work out how to make money out of this, unless you're at the levels of subscription that Ralphie's at, or the fantastic work the guys are doing over at Whiskey Biscuits and the Whiskey Vault. They've got 2 channels, those guys, and they just okay. They've got a very, very good way of doing it. They've got a team around them and things like that. But what they're doing is showing just how much appetite there is out there for whiskey content on YouTube. And it might be that you and I, we're pointing at the jaggy end of the scale. We're certainly pointing at whiskey geeks, I think, if we're honest. Whereas a lot of the content out there is very accessible to whiskey curious people that are just starting out in their whiskey journey. But as they progress, all of us are going to find our audience. And really, we're the same as our audience. We're just hobbyists who's decided to get in front of a camera to kind of to share this stuff, or to, in my case, I like to talk about evangelizing about it. And it just seemed like a good word to describe, you know, this desire I had inside me to talk about how whiskey affects me and what it does to me and what it does to, you know, any social situation that you put it in. And I'm really, really grateful that I've found YouTube to do that, because I really never imagined that I would be comfortable in front of a camera. It's quite absurd.
It's funny how I think we both, we've shared this before, but we both felt that way. And if people watch my first couple of videos, they can definitely sense that there's a discomfort there. And I hope I've gotten better. I still have a lot of work to do, but I hope over the last 2 years I've improved and provided a product for these guys that actually makes some sense, and they're willing to watch.
When I was looking at, you know, when I do the recycled videos, what I've started to do is each of the bottles that I drop, I'll link in the description below. I'll link to another channel or another source on the web, another review. So you don't need to take my opinion for this whiskey. You can look to see what other people thought about the whiskey as well. And I'll link to other channels and things from underneath. But recently, when I was searching your channel for that, I was utterly struck by the huge catalogue of whiskies that you've reviewed. I mean, it is quite amazing. And how long have you been doing it now, Rob? 2.5 years now, or 2 years?
It's just over two. Well, it was 2 years at the end of December, so this is 2 years, 2 months now. And
how many videos have you done?
This is my 222nd video. I don't just count my reviews, though. I count all my videos. So whatever I've done is on there in accounted, I guess you could say.
So you're knocking on for about a catalogue of 200 whiskies that people can search that you've tried, which is amazing when you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed the journey. I've gotten to try things that I would never, ever get to try if it wasn't for this channel. So because of that, I'm appreciative of what we're doing tonight and all of these guys actually tuning in to watch us, because it's been awesome.
No, we all appreciate what you do as well, because we know how much of a challenge it is for time at home and family time. We know you've got a young family and things, and it does take an awful amount of dedication. But you do bring it, like so many of the guys who I can't eat at their table. They bring it week after week after week. It's like clockwork. It's quite an amazing thing.
Well, I think you should give yourself some credit, because if these guys have watched any of your videos, they know what I'm talking about. They're excellently done, in my opinion. Before we sign off, I want you to just quickly give your website where they can find some of your blogs, your YouTube channel, and whatever else I want you to plug. Go ahead.
So the website is quite sleepy. I've not really updated the website much at all, but I was thinking that the website could be revitalized a little bit in the future, but it's a good place to get in touch with me. At the very least, it's aqvavitae.com. Aqvavitae, the U is a V, but you'll find me on YouTube as Aqvavitae. Rob, I'm sure you'll stick a link in the description box below afterwards, but I think I get the impression that certainly most of the people in the chat tonight, although I have seen quite a few new names, may know who I am already. If you come along to Aqvavitae, I'd love to welcome you there. I do still try to respond to every single comment that gets posted. Sometimes I'm a little bit tardy at that just because of time, but I do try to get back and respond to everybody. I would love to welcome you over there. Rob, this has been wonderful again. I like hanging out with you generally, but I just like the vibe, the chat that's going on. I like how much of a gentleman you are. I like what you're doing for whiskey, and I want to always have you around. Thanks for having me tonight. You're an absolute star.
Well, thank you for joining. Honestly, it was kind of a last minute thing because we couldn't sort out our dates, and then the fact that you made the time to do this tonight, I know it's late for you and you have to work in the morning, so I really, really appreciate it. The pleasure was honestly mine. I had a great time. Stay on the line. We're just going to sign off to everybody and say thank you guys for joining. You guys are awesome. Thanks to the super chats, but honestly, I just want you guys to know that it's an added bonus, a great thing that you guys are doing. Not necessary. We love doing what we're doing. We love having you guys here joining in on the fun. It's really a fun thing. So,
sorry, Rob, in the spirit of community that I've been banging on about, I promised myself that I would remember to do something tonight. Absolutely. Charles and Wally or Sniff, from Scotch and Sniff, they do a live stream on Tuesday nights. I think that they're going to be going live later tonight. Go and hang out and have some whiskey geekery and chat with those guys. Their channel is Whisky Untitled.
That's right.
I also had the pleasure earlier on tonight of hanging out with two guys, an American guy called Evan, who's based in London, and his buddy Ed from Top Whiskies. Now, Top Whiskies, if you're on Instagram, you've heard them. They're absolutely huge on Instagram. They're doing great content, but they also have fantastic content on their YouTube channel. It's very well informed. It's done in a very fun way. The production is very good quality as well. I enjoyed chatting to those guys tonight. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to schedule a collaboration sometimes in the near future. But yeah, in the spirit of handover, check out Top Whiskies and make sure you check out Whisky Untitled on their live stream. I didn't even check if they were going live, but they do it like clockwork on a Tuesday, so I'm sure it's going to be tonight. Check them out a little bit later if you're around.
And actually, Top Whiskies have been in the chat quite a bit, and I think a lot of the viewers agree with you because they seem to be fans of the show as well. Whisky Untitled, awesome. They're going to be on, I think, at 8:30. I think that's Charles in the chat right now. Maybe he can just clarify, and I'll quickly say that before we sign off. But again, Roy, thank you so much, buddy. I really appreciate it. I want you to stay on the line because I want to chat with you a little bit longer while I still have you. Whisky Untitled, I guess, missed the cue. I'm going to say he's around 8:30. So check him out. Keep an eye on the lives. Thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. You guys are all awesome. Cheers.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rob. Good night.